3, around 9 minutes. Mr Kerr.
And I move the amendment in my name. As I tried to intervene on the Cabinet Secretary to say, it's important that we have an honest discussion about where we are in Scotland with Scotland's education system. And the SNP really shouldn't try to disguise their paucity of positive ideas or policies by trying to hide behind the national discussion. Because we can all very clearly see that Hamza Yousaf and his ministers are scratching around for policy ideas. Just look at last week. Now, thank goodness the Scottish Conservatives had ideas about tackling violence in schools. The government could then copy and paste the Scottish Conservative motion with minor adjustments and present it as their initiative. And I'm not moaning about it. I wish they'd do it more often. Now, I'm happy to give way to the Cabinet Secretary if she will just update us on when the summit that she proposed is going to take place.
Cabinet Secretary.
The discussion didn't come about in relation to the current First Minister. This has been commissioned as a result of the Muir report. It feels to me that the member may have come with a pre-prepared script to the Chamber today and perhaps has not actually engaged in reading the report itself. I would certainly encourage him to do so. It is a substantive body of work. I already gave an undertaking last week during what was a consensual debate in relation to behaviour and relationships in schools that I would come back to Parliament with proposals. I have yet to receive proposals from my officials on that, but I do intend to take action on this matter before the end of the parliamentary session. I gave Mr Kerr an undertaking on this last week, and I asked Mr Kerr really to respond. Is this the best he can do for Scotland's children and young people? Let's work together more positively and consensually to deliver the improvements we need to see in Scottish education. That's my challenge to
Stephen Kerr, I would encourage interventions to be a little briefer, not just from the Cabinet Secretary, but from Mr Kerr himself. Mr Kerr, I'll give you some of that time back.
Thank you very much. Well, there we have it. That was the response from the Cabinet Secretary. But this government is now in its 17th year in office. It can't hide its record in education behind the national discussion. That is my point. So my message to Jenny Gilruth and her colleagues is straightforward. Please listen. Listen to what the people are saying is going wrong and act on it. The final report of the national discussion, All Learners in Scotland Matter, and I have read it, and by the way, I think we should have published it long before 10 to 3, it's a separate matter, is what the people of Scotland are telling us loud and clear. And that's why this report should actually make these ministers feel very uncomfortable indeed. Because I repeat, we're in the 17th year of a government that said education was its #1 priority. But listen to the... Yes.
Martin Whitfield.
I'm very grateful to Stephen Kerr to give way. And would he agree with me that after 17 years it should be of extreme concern that what the young people responded to in this consultation was a fear about being at school?
Stephen Kerr.
And I'm going to quote from the report. 9.3, we heard many concerns about whether the national discussion would lead to genuine action and significant change. And goes on, we heard frustration, cynicism or anger in some cases about whether transformational education reform as recommended by the Muir Review would be implemented in Scotland. We heard concerns about whether there would be a tendency to continue the status quo, rather than embracing an opportunity for the entire system to do things differently. 9.3. So as we enter the 17th year of this SNP government, people feel cheated. They feel let down, they feel angry. They've seen an SNP government big on words, big on promises, infinitesimally small on delivery. But I will.
John Swinney.
I'm grateful to Mr Kerr for giving way. Does Mr Kerr welcome the fact that on the most recent data, a record number of young people are leaving Scottish education to go to positive destinations at 95.7%? Does that not in any way register on Mr Kerr's view of the world as being a good thing?
Stephen Kerr.
Of course, I welcome positive destinations, but the definition this government uses to positive destinations, it can mean just about anything. And the tracking, it only goes for so many months after the young people leave school. I'm afraid it leaves a lot to be desired. That is my honest response to that intervention from John Swinney. Much needs to be improved. But going back to the report, there is a groundswell, as has been referred to, of current support for educational improvement, which cannot be lost, ignored or sidelined. Again, 9.3. And Professors Campbell and Harris, the independent facilitators, conclude, so now is the time for action, most critically, time for the right action. My question is, will this Cabinet Secretary set herself apart from her predecessors? Will she take action that parents, teachers and school leaders are begging for to reform Scotland's education system? Now, we all know the business of government is the business of tough choices. And the Cabinet Secretary isn't going to be able to please everybody, because doing the right things very often results in at least temporary unpopularity. But if Jenny Gilruth makes the right decisions for Scottish educational reform and she meets resistance, I can assure her we in these benches will support her. I hope the events that lie ahead will show that we are fortunate to have a former teacher as the Cabinet Secretary for Education. I know that she will empathise with the concerns writ large in this report about teacher recruitment and retention. Should have been fixed a long time ago. The report highlights the job insecurity too many teachers experience. How can teachers, particularly newly qualified teachers, plan their future lives when they are stuck on a temporary contract? And the report goes on. We heard about exhaustion, stress, anxiety, burnout affecting people's capacity to do their work and negatively impacting their personal lives. That's 6.1.22. This is what we were talking about last week, when we called on the government to provide extra support to teachers in the form of a national helpline. Employee helplines are very common in businesses and other organisations. There's something that can be done now to provide teachers with an outlet, because we need to rebuild teacher morale. Comments for teachers and pupil support assistants speak of a profession, of roles that have been underappreciated for far too long. And this is why the Scottish Conservatives have called for a new deal for teachers. And this report backs up what we are talking about. We want to see reduced contact hours for teachers to plan and prepare lessons, teachers paid for extracurricular activities, competitive salaries offered for specialist subject teachers, cuts to excessive bureaucracy to let teachers teach, the opportunity for teacher sabbaticals to help them develop professionally, and new pathways into teaching to attract the best talent. And beyond these proposals, there are 3 specific issues that I hope I have time to mention that we need to openly and calmly debate. Firstly, the autonomy of head teachers. I have always felt that it was far better to trust head teachers to run the schools they know and the school populations they know in the communities that they know than to leave decisions in the hands of national, regional or local authority managers. There must be accountability, and we need to give careful thought as to how that can be best achieved. But head teachers should have the freedom to innovate and lead according to the needs of the pupils in their care. Secondly, I don't know if I have time. Do I have time?
You've got a bit of time back.
I will take an intervention.
Ross Greer, briefly.
Thanks. I'm grateful to the member for taking the intervention. I strongly agree on the need for more autonomy at schools, but the member may be familiar with proposals in the last session for a head teacher's charter. When the Education Committee took evidence on that with 32 head teachers, their response was unanimous. They wanted the school to be empowered. They did not, as an individual, want to be empowered because they wanted their whole team to take that approach to making decisions in their school.
Stephen Kerr.
Leaders in any walk of life are leaders that lead teams of people. That's a fact, so I don't disagree with that. So secondly, there's a great deal in the report about the value of play-based learning. So we should review formal schooling starting age, perhaps to age 6. The starting age is 6 in Germany, Spain, Denmark, Sweden and Norway, and is 7 in Finland and South Korea. Something we should look at. Thirdly, we need to give serious consideration to the presumption of mainstreaming for children with additional support needs. There is clear evidence in the report that what we have currently is not working. The report recounts concerning and troubling experiences from parents about their child, this is a quote, not receiving timely and necessary supports and sometimes inappropriate use of exclusions and other sanctions. The need for appropriate ASN provision is now urgent. 5.2.10. In large classes, pupils with additional support needs struggle to learn. Their classmates struggle with their sometimes distressed behaviour. It is high time we address this. The people of Scotland care passionately about their education system. The end of the report states, quote, "The scale of the response is unprecedented in the history of national engagements about Scottish education." 9.2. That makes me proud to be part of this great nation, that we care so passionately about our education system. But here's what the report concludes, and I will conclude. Quote, "One thing is clear. There is an overwhelming appetite for change. Presiding Officer, the people of Scotland are watching and waiting. We urgently await action from this SNP government. More words won't cut it, and I call on the government to show teachers, school leaders, parents and pupils that they have listened to the national discussion and will now act on it."
Thank you,